How to stop caring what people think of you. Now, like anything else in life, I know this is a lot easier said than done. If you are feeling like this right now, I get it. I've been in this position and I spent most of my life in that position too. And when I look back on years of my life, I wish that somebody had taken a few moments to sit there and talk to me about these things, because I could have saved myself a lot of time and effort and just overall thoughts that could have been put into more of a positive direction and moving forward instead of keeping me stuck instead. And so if that sounds like you, this video is for you. Now, when we think about how to not care what other people think of us, this can be a broad category, right? And the most important thing I would tell you up front is to ask yourself one question, and that is, what do you think about you? Before we get into anything, this is really the most important question you should be asking. And so what I tend to find is that you either fall into one or two camps. The first camp is that when asked this question, you don't know. You really can't answer who you are, how you see yourself as a person, or if you can, there's some ambiguity there where it's tough for you to confidently say, this is it. And if that is you and you're having a difficult time doing so, well, then what I would do is I would pause there. And I wouldn't try to move forward until you understood well enough who it is that you are and you're able to answer that question with confidence. The reason being is that I think sometimes when we don't know enough about us, it's very easy to take people's opinions around us, or the perceived opinions, at least about those, and fill those in for how we feel about us instead, which then makes it harder to move past, because every time someone says something to you or you think that they're thinking something about you, that's just your first go-to. And that can be a scary place, right? The second group that I'll talk about is the people that, when asked that question, they do know who they are. They do know how they think about themselves. And the problem is that whether they perceive it or whether you hear it directly from someone else near you, it's very easy to get to a point where you're like, okay, like now I'm not really sure who I am, because I think I am this way. I think this is what I think about myself. But now that this person said something to me, I'm questioning that and I'm not really sure. And so therefore, when I move forward, now I'm having the questions like, well, what do they think about me? I thought this about me, but now they're thinking something else. Especially if it's someone like friends or family that's close to you, and it's very hard to not take what they say and internalize that in some way. So primarily this video is to talk to the people that fall into this camp where you feel like, yeah, I know who I am. I know what I think about myself, but I let the opinions and thoughts of other people or the perceived thoughts of them conflict with what I think. And so therefore I'm kind of stuck in this pattern where I'm constantly asking how to not let other people's opinions affect me or get to me instead. I think a lot of times we can kind of fall into two camps. We're either on the emotional side or the logical side. To me, both of these things are extreme, right? If you approach anything in life with too much emotion or with too much logic, you're kind of missing the other side. So I think a lot of times the truth lies in the nuance that's in the middle of both of these. You're thinking, what does this person think about me? Or I don't know how to stop letting their thoughts and opinions affect me or get to me. I think that sometimes this is an emotional response. And so therefore, what you need to do is put a little bit of logic in there to balance it out. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here. I go off this one principle where it's, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. And the reason I say that is that if you are going to take criticism from someone, but they are somebody you take advice from, that implies that there's something they do that inspires you, something they have, a character trait that they show, something of positive nature that you look up to, that you would take that advice from. So if someone is like that to you, or they're like a role model, or you're inspired by them, by all means, listen to the criticism from them or listen to what they think of you. You don't necessarily have to take everything word for word, but in that scenario, I say that it's okay to at least hear out what they have to say and maybe kind of weigh it against what you think. Now, in the case where someone is giving you criticism or saying anything to you in which you would never take advice from this person, you don't want anything they have, you look at their situation, you think, that's not me, and I don't want any part of that. Ask yourself, why is it that you would take any type of criticism from them either? Because sometimes those things are kind of linked, in which that's just a good perspective to have in general. I think that if you know enough about you and what you care about and what you like, that is the most important thing. And that's actually a much harder place to get to, I think, than a lot of people give credit. So if that is you, congratulations. You've got past something that a lot of people struggle to get to at any point in their life. So if you know enough about you, why is it that you're listening to somebody else? around you and letting that kind of conflict with what you're saying. If it's friends or family, I get why this is tougher, because you want to believe that just because they're closer to you, they're going to have your best interests at heart and they wouldn't tell you anything that's wrong, right? But that's not always the case. And if it's a scenario in which you know well enough who you are, how you feel about you, and you're just not really sure what someone's saying, so they're not telling you directly, but you perceive this, well, that's a little bit of a scenario to a certain extent, right? Like, let's say you walk into work and you're like, wow, like, what do they think about what I'm wearing? How do they think about my work ethic here? You know, what are they thinking about my lunch? It doesn't matter what it is. If you're not really hearing from them, it's easy to fill in these gaps and think, like, what are they thinking? I don't know. I think this partly kind of falls back into like the whole spotlight effect, right? In which we think we're kind of the center of the universe for most things, right? Because we think about us more than probably anybody else does. And so we automatically assume that when we walk in somewhere or we do something, all the emphasis and spotlight is on us. However, what we often miss is that most people are the spotlight of their own life too. So they're focused on them. They're focused on anybody else that's close to them or things that affect them directly. They're not always focused on you. But if you are a person that kind of leans a little bit anxious, kind of like I am, it's easy to sit there and have these moments where you let these other thoughts kind of creep in. And next thing you know, you're sitting there thinking about, well, what do they think about me? Or maybe I'm not doing this right. Or maybe that's what they think about me here. And I know who I am, but like now I'm questioning it because they looked at me weird. And now I'm like, well, what do you think about this, that? And you can fill all these blanks in. I get it. It's a slippery slope though, because once you start doing that, it's hard to stop yourself unless you have this moment where you can kind of step outside and hit pause, so to speak, and kind of reevaluate and think like, well, why am I thinking about this? Why am I really dwelling in what I think they think about me and such too? One thing that has helped shift my perspective is the idea of what people think about me in a positive or negative way. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when we ask this question, like, well, I don't know what they think about me, or how do I stop caring about what people think about me and such? Almost always this is done in a negative way, meaning that our perceived thoughts about what they think of us or the things that they have said to us directly are of a negative nature, right? It's very rare, I think, when we come into contact with someone that's telling us something positive, or something nice about us, or we think something nice about us. We think that someone else thinks that too, that we question that, right? It's usually only on the negative side. And I get why this is the instinct. However, I would say that in order to help stop thinking about all the negative things, you kind of have to stop thinking about the positive things too, right? Because to some extent, this provides some type of confirmation both ways. The easier things to focus on are the negative things, right? Like, do they think I look weird? Do they think I act weird? What do they think about anything else? But if someone constantly comes up and gives you like certain praise and such, where they're like, you know, you're the smartest person here, or you do a great job, and all these other things, and you take that in, it's very easy to become reliant on some of these positive, you know, affirmations or positive things that they say to you in order to keep you going, just like the understanding of some of the negatives or things can kind of keep you stuck. And while the positives may not seem like they're a big deal, when you get conditioned to a point where you expect these, or you feel like you take in some of these positive things to keep you going, it's much easier sometimes to listen to the negative things that people have to say too. And while one may be true, the other one may not be, meaning maybe the positive things are true, but the negative things they say are not true, well, that's a slippery slope too. So sometimes in order to kind of get past the point where you are allowing other people's thoughts to get in there or think what do they think of you and such too, you have to eliminate the part of you that thinks about the positive things they say and takes those in order to eliminate the negative piece too. It's hard to pick and choose whether you want to or not. And I know this may seem a little bit controversial because you think, what's the big deal with something positive? But if you want to do it across the board, it's easier to practice consistency across here rather than is to kind of, you know, nitpick and take exactly what works for you and what doesn't. I think sometimes whether we realize this or not, that can skew our perception, and that can make us lean into the negative things too, because someone is telling us something positive. So we assume it all to be true as well. I'm going to give you an example about something that first kind of highlighted, you know, the ways that people think about you or they don't think about you and their perception, and maybe why it doesn't matter too. Right now I'm making a YouTube channel, right? I'm making YouTube videos. Way back when, I thought I was going to be an online fitness trainer. So I jumped on Instagram, I made an account, I started posting daily, and I was doing okay for a while. And then things really took off. I was doing great. All my posts were really getting great numbers, and it was great, a lot of great engagement from people and such too. And before you try to go look this up, it's no longer in existence. I took the page down a while back. But what I learned from that was that as I was moving forward, family, some friends around me, and people that I thought were honestly close to people in my life were really nowhere to be found. You didn't get a lot of support and things that you would perceive to happen. What happened from there is I started thinking, okay, like, well, what do people think about me? Like, do they think what I'm doing is dumb? Does my family think this is a waste of time? Do they think I don't look great? Do they think I don't know what I'm talking about? Asking yourself a million questions that fall into what this camp may be. And over time, what I realized was that people I never met in my life that lived across the ocean, sometimes in a different side of the world, were giving me support and were talking to me, or at least kind of being involved in having open lines of communication such too. It wasn't that they were giving me positive things or negative things, but they at least showed some type of interest. We had a dialogue about that, something that didn't really exist with people that I thought were the closest to me too. This is not an atypical experience. And while this may be about content creation, this can happen with anything in your life. So if you want to pursue a new career or a new relationship, a new car, it doesn't matter what it may be. And you're getting pushback from people directly, where they're saying things to you that make you question, like, well, what do they think about me? Or what do they think about my decisions? Or maybe I'm not doing this right, or whatever it may be. I get it. And the same concept applies, right? It's like sometimes we think the people that are closest to us will give us the best advice. They'll be there for us, and they won't think these things. On the other side of that, I think that sometimes people that are closest to us that have these thoughts and opinions can also be the most harmful, because it's our expectation of their reaction, not the reality of what tends to happen. And so earlier when I mentioned that I wish I had someone kind of tell me some of these things when I was younger, this is a big concept, because the sooner you realize that the only thing that really matters is how you perceive you, the faster you can be to move past these moments where you're dwelling and sitting there thinking, like, what do they think about me? Or like, what do they think about what I'm doing? Or whatever else, and keep going on this constant cycle that just never ends. It's never easy, like I mentioned in the beginning. But what I think is that when you're able to kind of take these moments to get out of this state where you're thinking emotionally throughout these, and you get to a point where you're putting a little bit of logic in there, kind of what I'm talking about here, right? I think these are the moments where you can slowly start to catch yourself and realize, like, okay, yeah, like, I don't know what they think about me, but you know what? I think I'm smart. I think I'm capable. I think I'm driven. I think I have goals, and I think I'm going to make this work. So that anything else you hear from people, or anything else you think that they think about you instead, starts to take a back seat. And I'm not saying that it'll always be perfect. I'm not saying you won't have moments where you think, oh, I don't know, what are they thinking of me? Or I'm kind of feeling this now. But what you realize over time is that those are the moments where you can take that pause, take a step back, take a walk, and come back 20 minutes later, whatever it may be, and revisit the thing to see if you still feel that same way or not. And over time, as you keep doing this more and more, it gets easier. There's no real way for me to sit there and tell you when it gets easier, but it does get easier. I promise it will. So start off with asking yourself, who am I? Answer that question to the best of your ability. And so then when you find yourself in a position where you're asking, oh, how do I get over what you're thinking about me? How do I move past? How do I not let their opinions affect me? How do I not take in what they're saying? How do I not do what they're telling me to do? You can get to a point where you understand that sometimes people tell you things that they think are best for you, not because they're trying to be any type of bad way, but because sometimes that's all they know. And just because that's all they know doesn't mean it has to become your reality and your compass moving forward. The most important thing is that you know who you are, you know what you care about, you know how you perceive you. And as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else around you, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Even if it gets to a point where you feel as if it's disappointing some of your friends and family and things around you too. That is never an easy thing to deal with, but you have a choice. You can continue to do things as you have been doing them, letting these external pressures and thoughts and feelings affect you. Or you can make today the first day that you say, no more, I'm done. I know myself well enough. I know what I care about well enough to not let those things affect me. And one by one decision at a time, one day at a time, I'm going to take that power back from me. So I make sure that I move forward and I live out the most meaningful life that I can possibly live instead. So I hope this helped. And if it did, please go and leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm going to see y'all here in the next one. Take care for now. Peace.